Approved by voters in 1978, Proposition 13 has had a dramatic impact on California government. Proposition 13 reformed the system of property taxes in the state. Traditionally, property taxes are collected and administered at the local level. They're very important because they serve as the main source of funding for K-12 education and a variety of other local needs. Property taxes are assessed annually and are based on the value of the property. As a result, when property values rise, as they do in California, so do property taxes. In the 1970s, property taxes were skyrocketing. A group of anti-tax advocates succeeded in getting Proposition 13 onto the ballot. Proposition 13 did several things. First, it reduced the property tax rate to 1% of the purchase price of a property. It also dramatically limited the amount by which property taxes can rise. They are limited to rising only 1% a year unless they're sold. Importantly, Proposition 13 also ended local control over property taxes and gave control to Sacramento. And finally, Proposition 13 required a 2/3 majority vote in both houses of the state legislature in order to impose any new taxes. Proposition 13 has had dramatic effects. First, because property taxes are the main source of funding for K-12 education, there's less money for governmental programs in general and education in particular. In the 1960s, California had one of the highest per capita spending on K-12 education in the entire nation. Today, California ranks 33rd. We've also seen declining test scores during this period, although the reason for those are very complicated. Another effect of Proposition 13 is that although it was intended to benefit homeowners, it's actually businesses that benefit the most. This is because property taxes are only reassessed after a property is sold. Human beings often move or die or sell their property for other reasons. But companies can own their land for decades and their tax benefit accumulates all of that time. Proposition 13 also has the unintended consequence of raising housing prices. The simple fact is that cities need money. But because of Proposition 13, they no longer control property taxes. As a result, cities have very little incentive to allow housing to be built. New houses cost cities money because new people move in and the city has to provide services for them, which costs money. And since Proposition 13, sales taxes have replaced property taxes as the main source of local revenue. This means that cities have no incentive to create housing, but they do have an incentive to approve any business that generates sales tax, which explains the proliferation of strip malls in California. Another criticism of Proposition 13 is that it can be unfair in certain circumstances. Consider two homes that are side by side with the exact same value. Even though they're worth the same amount, their property taxes may be different, depending on when they bought their homes. Despite these problems and others to be mentioned in the next lecture, it does remain very popular. And although many tax experts recommend reforming it, the chances of reform are slim.